Have you ever wondered who owns the UFC? You better buckle up for this. I'm just gonna read very mainstream sources and I'm gonna let you fill in the blanks. And don't worry, it won't be hard to do. So in case we're not clear, we're talking about the UFC, the biggest mixed martial arts fighting promotion in the world. They're owned by TKO Group Holdings, which is owned by Endeavor Group Holdings. And the CEO of TKO Group is Ari Emanuel. And he is also the CEO of Endeavor, the bigger company, along with Patrick Whitesell, the executive chairman. But I guess his name is probably pronounced Ari Emanuel because it's Jewish, not Mexican. His father, Jerusalem-born Benjamin Emanuel, was a pediatrician who was in the Irgun, a Zionist paramilitary group that operated in mandatory Palestine during the 30s and 40s. And just to clarify, paramilitary group means terrorist organization. And just to clarify, that is not my definition or Hamas's definition or Palestinians' definitions. That is literally the Israeli government's definition. In 1948, they outlawed the Irgun and Lehi groups, declaring them terrorist organizations. Basically, everyone inside and outside of Jewish worlds called them terrorists and strongly condemned them. Here's a list of the bombings that they were responsible for. So anyways, his dad was a Zionist terrorist from back when Israel was being formed. And now he runs the UFC. Well, he owns the UFC. Dana White runs it. But that is just the start of this. Because he has two brothers. This one was Obama's White House chief of staff after years in senior positions in the Clinton administration. But there's another one. This one works at the Center for American Progress, the Wharton School, Harvard, and the NIH. But don't worry, the deep state is not real. Oh yeah, and President Joe Biden named him one of the 16 members of the COVID-19 advisory board. All three of those guys, their dad was an Israeli terrorist that even the Israeli government outlawed because their terrorist acts were so fucked up. Like bombing civilians. Literally. But wait, there's more. Because both Ari and his buddy Patrick, who are in charge of that other whole organization in charge of the UFC, they are also both in charge of IMG. They are co-CEOs. IMG is like a sports and media company. They have a whole entertainment and modeling division, including Miss Teen USA, Miss Universe. What does that remind me of? Yeah, you remember Epstein's pimp, Jean-Luc Brunel, who hung himself right before Epstein was all coming out? He allegedly procured more than 1,000 women and girls for Epstein. One of IMG's top representatives described him as a coked out misogynistic pig from day one. Whew. Thank goodness. I'm glad that IMG is not involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, except for this article where a bunch of survivors told their stories, and this one said that she worked for IMG. She told IMG what he was doing to her over in France or wherever she was, and IMG was like, oh, that's cool, whatever, no problem. And then they continued to send girls to him. Yeah, so IMG worked with him. And IMG doesn't just do modeling. No, no, no. Here is all the sports leagues and events that they work with. There's the UFC. They do modeling, consulting, events, like the Premier League, the highest level of English football, like the PGA of America, like the United States Tennis Association. They've got figure skating. They got motorsports. Shit, they've even got the world's strongest man in the US Open of surfing. Are you getting the picture yet? These three brothers, whose dad was a Zionist terrorist, have been top dogs at the Clinton White House, the Obama White House, the Biden COVID response. They control the UFC, a huge amount of the modeling industry, a huge amount of the tennis, golf, all sorts of sports, soccer, rugby. There are quite literal ties to Epstein. And don't get me wrong, I love MMA. I love watching the UFC. But just think about culture. Think about gladiators. Think about Rome. Think about all the other industries we've recently learned have weird ties to sexual blackmail rings. Think about modeling. Think about how young boys and girls grow up in America. And if you're on TikTok, think about downloading this video right now, because it's not going to last very long. And when it goes away, you can find it on the other platforms. Yeah, so that's who owns the UFC.